Good morning and welcome to the new era of agriculture commodity trade. Welcome to session 1, day 6, the last day of Commodity Week World 2026 or CWW26. We had exceptional 5 days where we touched upon various aspects of agriculture commodity sector, starting from maize, moving to wheat, then rice, CEO perspective, technology, logistic, then moving to oilseed and vegetable oil. Finally, yesterday we concluded excerpt sessions on pulses, and today we are here to talk about sugar. Just a small visual and audio check. Neeraj, am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Awesome. So over the last 5 days, as I said, we had a global marathon which has mapped multiple commodities in the agriculture. Now, the 6 day began with the focus turning to commodity that sit at the highly volatile intersection of global food security and bioenergy transition. Welcome to the Sugar Asia Pacific War Room. The agriculture value chain has crossed a critical threshold. The traditional playbooks, the one that relied on predictable crop cycles, stable freight corridors, and reliable trade alliances, have officially expired. Trade is no longer observing cyclical market corrections. Operations are running within a baseline of permanent structural volatility. Over this final day, our tactical sessions will continue bringing the global boardroom directly to your screen. CWW26, organized by HnyB Tech Incubations and Know Your Commodity, is presented by AgriGuru Online and supported by Kripco Agri, Bajrang Group International, and Bengani Group, along with our association partners OATA Myanmar, Ukraine Pulses and Soybean Association, and GOPKI Indonesia. Other institutional partners include Solidarad and World Cooperation Economic Forum. CWW26 is moving entirely beyond the delayed data of historical balance sheet and scripted presentation. This is an unscripted, unfiltered war room. The mission is to democratize the high-stake market intelligence, mitigate the systemic risk of information asymmetry, and equip market participants with foresight needed to defend margins and ensure equity for producers and consumers alike. As a reminder, these sessions are being live across multiple digital assets on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter or X, Facebook, and even website. Till yesterday late evening, the overall views we have been able to achieve so far is 78,000 eyeballs. For an online event of this magnitude, I think this is a pretty decent number. And as you know that actually we beam across multiple handles, multiple channels. And I think with your support, the success has been phenomenal. Let's go to the macro view. The grains are the basic caloric survival. Oil seeds dominate feeds and fats, pulses the nutrition security. But the sugar is experiencing an unprecedented structural revolution. It is no longer just a global food staple. It is premier feedstock for the worldwide ethanol and bioenergy transition. Globally, the sugar balance sheet is attempting to stabilize, but the supply-demand matrix remains incredibly sensitive. According to the latest estimates, the global sugar production for 2025-26 season was recorded close to 182 million metric tons, marking close to 3.5% increase from previous year, which was a turbulent year for sugar sector. This robust production recovery has raised 2025-26 global sugar surplus estimate to 2.2 million metric tons, rebounding sharply from 3.46 million metric tons of deficit witnessed in previous cycle. However, looking ahead to 2026-27, we are back to a challenging year. The global sugar production might contract between 1.5 to 2% year-on-year basis, down to 178 to 180 million metric tons. While a global surplus currently exists on paper, it remains incredibly fragile. Any unexpected surges in ethanol diversion or late season weather anomalies can rapidly erode this 2.2 million tons of buffer, keeping baseline physical availability tight. To understand how these global trends, aggressive energy mandate translates into physical trade risk, the focus must shift directly to the ultimate production powerhouse and policy crucible, the Asia Pacific region, which bring the broadcast directly to the first panel of the day, the APAC theater, where the production powerhouses and ethanol pivots are normal. Here in Asia Pacific region, the sugar narrative dictates the global flat price. This region controls the physical availability of the international trade cycle, balancing massive domestic consumption against aggressive national blending mandates. That's break down critical APAC pressure points into 4 to 5 key areas. First, the Indian production matrix. India stands as absolute structural anchor for global sugar trade. As per estimate of trade bodies, India's gross sugar production is projected at 32.4 million tons. However, managing the world's most complex sugar balance sheet means actively balancing the food versus fuel debate. It is estimated that 3.1 million metric tons of sugar will be diverted strictly for ethanol production this season. This leaves India with a net sugar production of roughly 29.3 million tons, which is 12% higher than the last year. When combined, this net production with an opening stock of 5 million tons, total domestic availability reaches 34.3 million tons, against an internal consumption of 28.3 million tons. The domestic balance sheet is comfortable, leaving an estimated closing stock of around 5.3 million tons. Due to this balance and lower global prices, exports are forecasted at a highly conservative 0.7 to 0.8 million tons, keeping the international market on edge regarding India's true physical participation. As you are aware, initially India allowed 1.5 million metric tons to be exported, adding additional 0.5 million metric tons, and then one fine day, the government in its wisdom decided that we should not be exporting any sugar, and a ban was enforced. Now let's talk about India's ethanol mandate. We cannot look at Indian sugar without looking at the massive fuel diversion mandate. The ethanol supply year 25-26 has proven that structural bioenergy shifts are permanent. Ethanol blending in petrol has remained steadily at 20%. Our target hit back in November 2025 and still being maintained. In April alone, oil marketing companies received close to 0.9 billion liters of ethanol. The sheer scale of this program is staggering. India's total ethanol production capacity now stands at roughly 1.9 billion liters. With capacity actually being underutilized, the domestic industry is actively pushing the government to increase the blending mandates beyond 20% threshold. And we have seen of late new initiative like the blended 85% fuel being allowed. Also, some, I would say not some, just two releases, one on two-wheeler, one for four-wheeler options when we talk about the cars. So every percentage point increase in this mandate permanently locks millions of tons, and hence the industry is pushing this narrative, rightly so, of increasing the blending of ethanol. Third, the Thai recovery and export flow. Thailand, traditionally the world's second largest exporter, is experiencing a critical recovery in production to 10.2 to 10.5 million tons and export potential of 7.5 million tons for 25-26. After navigating severe weather challenges in previous cycle, the rebound of Thai cane yield is foundationally component of the global trade of 64 million tons and improved global carry of 79.4 million tons. For regional destination buyers, particularly in Indonesia, Philippines, and to a certain extent even China, securing Thai raw and white sugar is essential for managing local refining margins and offsetting high logistic costs from alternative origins like Brazil. Let's talk about the fourth and important aspect, the Chinese demand anchor. We know that China always anchor whenever they are buying or selling in any market because of the sheer size they are involved. So when we look at the import potential or demand, it is estimated at 4.5 million tons for 25-26, which is 10% down from their previous year of roughly 4.9 million metric tons. This is because of better domestic recoveries. Chinese buyers are constantly monitoring global freight price and import parities, balancing state reserve liquidations with deep water raw sugar purchases. Anticipated increase in Chinese procurement for 2026-27 based on shortfall in their domestic beet and cane harvest might instantly threaten to erode the global surplus, sending immediate shockwaves through the regional futures market. Opening the war rooms, let's do that. The day of relying on lagging monthly reports to make multi-million dollar procurement decisions are over. Same, looking at WhatsApp and deciding what I should do today in my trade is also over. Navigating this complex policy-driven market requires elite ground-level foresight. That foresight is going to be extracted right now. An elite strike force of Asia-Pacific sugar expert has been assembled. This panel features the physical merchants who manage cross-border flows, the macro analysts who model institutional supply-demand deltas, corporate decision makers executing large-scale procurement amidst the food versus fuel chaos, and legendary expert who understand different nuances from trade to the government policies and overall ecosystem when it comes to sustainability of sugar industry. The mandate for this session is simple: no scripts, no filter, pure intelligence. To the live audience, please engage with the data and prepare to rethink coverage strategies. The market does not wait, and neither should the industry. It is time to secure a strategic edge. Welcome to day 6 and the last day of Commodity Week World 2026. Let's officially open the Sugar Asia Pacific War Room. With that, I would like to invite a legendary expert of industry, Mr. G.K. Sood. He's an agriculture economist, an eminent elderly statesman of Indian commodity sector, possesses over 6 decades of strategic corporate experience, and alumnus of Delhi University. His illustrious career features senior leadership role at global powerhouses including Louis Dreyfus, Coffee International, and Sri Renuka Sugar. His unparalleled expertise center on sugar, grain, and soft commodity cycles, making him an invaluable board-level advisor navigating the complex intersection of traditional trade and digital agribusiness solution. One of the important thing about Mr. Sood is that he is my guru as well. I'm honored and privileged to have his blessings, and whenever I have to look at any solution of any confusion, he is the man to go to. With the vast knowledge and his understanding of the global as well as Indian dynamics, he is an asset for anybody who can engage and interact with him. Thank you, Sood Saab. It's pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deepak. You're indeed very flattering. I don't think I deserved even a bit of it.
Sir, humbleness is also one quality I have not shared in your profile. So Sood Saab is one of the humblest guy. So whatever he just said was because of that. Sir, the people like me know, right, that the introduction was too brief, right? Maybe like, we should have taken at least 5 to 6 minutes talking about you, because that gives us the understanding of mind of a person who has been so influential, so clear, and so precise. So Sood Saab, my apologies. I don't take your first comment. Generally, I don't disagree with you. So I disagree with you that it was flattering. No, it was not. It was, I would say, very limited because of paucity of time. So sir, let me get into the straightaway important question. So with your experience, how does the current structural convergence of energy policy and traditional sugar trade compare to historical market reset? We are listening to all sort of push from right, left, center about energy, fuel, food, and then you have also seen that many of our associations start of the season they come out with such a flattening numbers that you think the sugar would be flowing in like in every corner of the country, then it get revised. So how do we solve such I would say a confusing state? I think sugar industry itself seems to be too confused, like in which direction they want to go. Your view, sir?
Well, sugar industry, like most agri industries in the country, started with very rudimentary technology, where most of the co-products, byproducts were discarded. Like in milk, fat was extracted in milk thrown away, and that was 1940. So it has come a long way, with every bit of it being utilized. Now we have um, one half of the quantity of sugar produced is less mud, which was by many factories being converted into manure, and it has other uses. It can be mixed with biochar, which also can be made within the factory from the surplus bagasse and so on. We have cogeneration, we have ethanol. So it has come a long way from a traditional sugar manufacturer who was like a Kolu to a modern sugar and energy complex. Having said that, there would be about 250 to 300 factories still lagging behind. Many of them are still very basic, and we need we need to create conditions for, can I say, mortality. Let unviable enterprises die, so that there can be M&As, like in many other industries, there can be consolidation. Uh, Sugar, particularly very vast sector of sugar, enjoys considerable support from government in terms of subvention of write-off of loans, write-off of this or that, or so, which is keeping the sick units afloat. I think a serious look is required on this. There have been couple of government committees which worked on it. Last was Tuteja committee. or regeneration of sugar industry. But then that too made only peripheral recommendations and didn't go into very basic fundamental issues. So we have a sugar industry with 573 mills on the portal of the government, and 200 of them supply ethanol, of which about 60, 70 are prominent suppliers. So therefore, when you say sugar industry has transited to energy, it is a sector of industry which has transited, not all of them, and we need to pull up the remaining, not only for energy but also for utilization of various byproducts for several energy applications and soil conditioning, soil rehabilitation. So, thank you. Your
Perfect,
next,
sir.
next
Very
question.
well, very well, very well articulated, and I think a very pertinent point you have raised. And sir, now actually we have to understand that how can the legacy sugar enterprises successfully bridge this gap between traditional and physical sugar trade practices and adoption to evolving ethanol policy? Because I've seen that there are now typically two segments within the industry. One who have started looking at ethanol, investing in ethanol, and even getting into alternative feedstock also. So from sugar industry, you become sugar plus ethanol industry, then you become sugar plus ethanol with grain as a feedstock industry. So we are seeing that also, one side we are having this mix, and then other side they are traditional sugar players. Now, do you think that there is any role for those traditional sugar players to survive? And if not, how do they should the legacy players, right, adapt themselves in current scenario?
Well, every sugar mill will have to make its own plans of diversification. It's not one size fit all. For instance, geographically, sugar industry is concentrated in Maharashtra, Karnataka, and UP. There is a price gradient between them, and therefore there was an incentive for Maharashtra, Karnataka to go more aggressively for ethanol. Now, what has happened is that when ethanol supply is concentrated in one part of the country, it is it is counterfactual, counterintuitive to carry it in diesel-powered trucks to faraway places. So therefore, the pattern which has emerged is that OMCs tend to buy from nearby grain ethanol. Now, globally, sugar's contribution is 40% in ethanol. Grains give 60%. And in India also, that kind of a structure is emerging. So this flexi fuel in 85, E85 were right steps in that direction so that we can absorb surplus ethanol wherever it's available. The pricing also is very appropriate, and now we are waiting for incentives on the vehicles so that the customers are incentivized to buy, and that will be in overall interest of the country, of sugar industry, or foreign exchange situation, etc. And now coming back to how the legacy units should adopt. Suppose as of today, if I'm a legacy unit in Maharashtra, now I may want to do other things like uh, get into consumer marketing of sugar. Sugar is a laggard in consumer marketing. Oil was the first. But in a country where you have seen mangoes being branded, you have seen as a humble article like salt being branded or water being branded, sugar got left behind because traditionally depended on the government to market the sugar, 65% levy. So households got. And um, so that is one area where they can deliver a quality and quantity product to the consumer. So one is that. Other is going to other applications, like I mentioned, biochar, CBG. They don't necessarily have to chase ethanol. If suppose they are in an island where the demand is not huge, and then there are other ethanol is alcohol. Uh, as of today, we are importing half a billion liters for chemical industry at zero duty. We are exporting half a billion liters of ENA, either as ENA or as bottled liquor. We are so overall about 400, 450 billion liters uh, beyond ethanol is required, so they can get into that industry. And so there are solutions for each one, just to make its own plan, given this wide canvas, and pursue it. And so basically, in that case, they will also uh, sort of insulate themselves from several vagaries of policies and so on and so forth. And so, thank you very much. Now, the next question.
No, suits a very important point you raised, but sir, a very simple submission and humble question to you. So, what happens is that sugar, in a certain way, is a regulated, supported, financed. There are multiple aspects to it. When we come to ethanol, it is pure commercial. Now, the government, how do they have one similar policy, right, for both? For example, ethanol being a commercial product, why I should be paying FRP, right, in case I have to produce ethanol. At the same time, sugar, I understand, there we have reasons to do that. And then there is whole talk about this MSP and all that. Don't you think that actually policy-wise, we have made a khichdi out of a scenario? Because maize is feedstock, rice is a feedstock. We are giving rice to an ethanol company, which is actually subsidized rice, right? I've paid for that rice, and now somebody would be using in his flexi car at my cost, and I've got no good reason to be paying for somebody else's car. So don't you think we have made a huge khichdi out of this political, policy wise?
I will. I'll answer the first thing, the FRP. How does the FRP come about? We have MSP for various commodities. Um, Most of it is not respected because the government is the authority which has to buy every grain at MSP. So it's very largely respected in case of wheat and rice, but not the other commodities. So because sugarcane can't be stored, can't be supported by the government, so it fell to the industry to support it. So we got statutory minimum price, which is nothing but the obverse of the same coin, MSP, SMP. Then at some stage, I would say, in consultation with sugar industry, um, the concept of FRP came, and that was in 2008-9. That why don't we give incentivized price 25% over SMP, so that the states which um, impose even higher price than um, SMP are prevented from doing it. Now, half of it stuck, the price rise stuck, the state didn't agree to give up the right. So, therefore, the sugar industry jacked up its cost by 25% by, I would say, to some extent, working with the government to introduce the concept of FFR. What it did was, so that is how. And now we are saying that the part of the production which goes to ethanol should not be subject to FRP. This is nothing but MSP and other commodities. So likewise, we should say that for corn going to ethanol, there should be no MSP, or for rice or whatever else. Tomorrow, if wheat. So I would say it's not very logical to ask for that. It's a different matter that the prices should be related, so long as they are regulated. Suppose we transit to tendered prices, because most of the government procurement is by tender, or OMC's procurement is by tender. Even now, the private companies are buying by tender. So suppose we transit to that, the whole thing gets sorted out. The market discovers the price. But till it is regulated, this should be based on a costing. Because if FRP has changed, the other price should also change. And uh, what is the second part of the question?
The second part was that actually, why I should be subsidizing, right,
Okay.
on
Now,
the
rice,
rice.
I totally agree with you. It is so illogical to encourage so much of rice production. Not only you are paying a hefty MSP, which is 50% over the cost of production. Then another 60%, 50% above that, paid as premium in some rice producing states. It was Odisha, Chhattisgarh, MP, and Rajasthan. So states where the ruling government felt they are not very sure because they had snatched the governments from other parties. So they said, why not? It's totally political. So by doing these illogical things, you collect more rice. You can do nothing about it because WTO regulations prevent you from exporting government procured uh, because you have encouraged production and now you are disturbing the world trade. So you are stuck with that. So finally, you find an outlet because otherwise there's a huge carrying cost you're paying. So the problem has to be solved at the beginning where it arose, not at the end. So we are handling the symptom of high stock by giving it to ethanol. We are not handling that the procurement it should not be so much incentivized. And so, I mean, I should, you would already know anyway that looking at the El Nino year and the outlook which one would have for sugar production for 26-27, even larger quantity of ethanol. My estimate was about 20 million tons of corn and uh, 12 million tons of rice. May have to be, and the 12 million tons has to come from FCI at whatever subsidy you consider. So, and taking down the rice stock, which might be about 40 million tons on 1st October, down to about 25 next year. And the year after that, they may not be able to give any rice because they're not happy only with the buffer norm, which is 12. They want to be comfortable over the buffer. You looked at wheat, how the buffer norm is 7.5, and they're not comfortable to 7.5. So at 25 next year, they will say, fine, we'll pause for rice for ethanol. And so El Nino is taking care. And secondly, you have a massive um, uh, allotment for ethanol from 5 million tons to double. And so I totally agree with you that the problem should be solved somewhere else, not there.
Perfect. I totally agree with you, sir. So that brings me to last question to you. So this is a critical aspect of you being like, board level advisor. What are the key parameters or macro indicators a board advisor should monitor very closely to be able to help whether a specific trend is a temporary correction or it is a long-term cyclical shift? Because we have seen that sometimes what we think is just a short-term correction eventually, for example, if you ask me 2 or 3 years back, the enhanced production of rice, we were seeing that it's just one season phenomena. Next year things are going to go normal. Now we
True.
are suffering the hemorrhage for nearly 3 years, and still we are continuing to tamper with policies of so many other commodities just because we thought it is a short temporary phenomena, but now it is becoming a structural issue with Indian agriculture.
Yeah, basically, on the one hand, we're taking up the last comment first. Um, we are we have one aspect of 145 crore countrymen who are subsisting on 140 million hectares of land, which is shrinking every day by urbanization and so on. So there's a huge pressure on land. On the other hand, if you look at the severity of El Nino, the weather events, you had in 15-16 and then again in 23-24 and the current year also looks like that. And earlier you had a long holiday. The previous sphere was in 87-88. And so is it, it appears that with the climate change and so many other factors, uh, we are heading for more and more temperature variability, more and more extremes, and therefore the impact on agriculture and therefore changing policies. Because in a 145 crore population country, you can't expect the government to be a bystander. And particularly where inflation is the most feared thing by politicians, particularly where bottom of the pyramid is very large in the population. And you know already that there are people working on 9-10,000 rupees salary for 15 years, no increment. That is in Noida, the industry, and just next to Delhi. And so that is one situation. On macro indicators, as far as sugar is concerned, uh, I would say they hardly affect the Indian sugar industry because we have uh, the global S&D. So the world needs our sugar, and we have sugar we are able to export. Subsidies are gone, not be possible to subsidize any longer because we are not a least developed country any longer. We gave up that exalted status in 2006. And but on the other hand, um, uh, you might say it's by hindsight, but if a problem like what US was getting into in terms of the burden of debt, there are already norms which economists have laid down that if the debt is X percent of GDP, it becomes unbearable. So um, whether it's uh, Trump or uh, somebody else, whether in this form or some other form, they were bound to take an action to correct their situation. It would not have been so abrasive if there was somebody else, but but I believe that these are the trends to watch on what's happening with countries which drive the world. You can wish away dollar that we'll do without it. We'll have a BRICS currency uh, where the countries are fighting with each other, still members of BRIC, where they are um, having dissimilar fiscal and revenue. You know the pain which you went through because of this dissimilarity between the economies. And the BRICS are much more diverse. So for a long time, we have no alternative. So you have to watch US and uh, and China. And so uh, other one would be that uh, um, the next thing, which is like in this given situation where you have some foreseen world events like Ukraine, one could foresee. It was coming from November, Ukraine-Russia war. But the attack on Iran, one could not foresee. And so I don't know how many people take ACGC cover because it's available for about 85-90% of risk, both for commercial side and political, ceilings and other things, for country ceilings. And but then um, uh, how many people take war risk insurance? And I've come across cargoes which have gone all over the world looking to discharge at Bandar Abbas and back to the NPT. And so this results in disputes. And
Right.
probably the cargoes are insured for war
Sure.
risk.
Sure.
So, so one is that take your insurance, keep sufficient cash reserves, so that if any shock is there, you have the oxygen to survive on. There are any number of examples of companies by the wayside which did not have the cash reserve and companies prospered in those difficult times because
Perfect,
no
sir.
room was created for them.
Perfect, sir. So very well articulated, and I think with companies which are having you as advisor to the board or you sit in the board, I think those things would be taken care of for sure. Thanks a lot, Sood Saab. It's always pleasure to have you, and thanks for insightful discussion and the points you have raised. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Honored.
So now we move to a little bit deviation from just pure trade. We are having Sri Prakash Neknavareji, who is Managing Director at the National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited. Very recently, we have seen news reports where they had a very productive meeting with the Honorable Minister of Cooperation as well as Home, Government of India, Shri Amit Shah. Prakash ji is representing nearly 300 cooperative sugar mills, supporting millions of farmers. He is a central advisor to the Government of India sugar and bioenergy legislations. His expertise centers on policy advocacy, value chain aggregation, and driving cooperative modernization by urging mills to diversify into ethanol, compressed biogas, and specialty sugars. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, sir, you had a great meeting. I think the first question should be around that. Sir, how is the government response to some of the long-standing demands which the sector was having, sir?
Yeah, sure. This meeting took place on 27th of May at the behest of the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. And there were two issues. Sugar was not alone. There was onion, which is a major issue in Maharashtra. So, but out of the 90 minutes meeting that we had, sugar was more or less more than 60 minutes, and the 30 minutes was for onion. Yes, the major issues were flagged there, and not only the Honorable Home and Cooperation Minister Amit Shahji, but also the Food Minister Honorable Prahlad Joshi ji and Agriculture Minister Mr. Shivraj Chauhan ji. They very carefully listened to each point that we raised, and they have taken note of it. And what is most heartening is that in the concluding remarks, Mr. Amit Shahji has touched upon all the points that we raised and has assured that within next 10 days, we will hear some news. Now, that some news is what? Positive, negative, neutral, is fingers crossed.
Right, sir. No, I understand, sir. Honorable Home Minister, he's having his own way of dealing with the things, and I'm pretty impressed by generally uh, either the policy decision he takes becomes correct, or he ensure that they seem to become correct. So
Very
that's the
well
way
said.
that's the way he function, and pretty proud that he comes from my state, where currently I am in Gujarat. So, sir, with nearly 300 cooperative sugar mills under your purview, what are the most critical policy intervention required to accelerate mill diversification into ethanol and compressed biogas? Because I think this is an issue which has been talked a lot, and I think it's a time that actually even the cooperative sector also get onto the bandwagon, not just the private players alone.
Yeah, sure. Well, the cooperative sugar sector has made significant investments in ethanol and bioenergy infrastructure in alignment with the Government of India's energy security and net zero objectives. However, certain policy interventions are necessary to fully realize the sector's diversification potential. Now, let's talk about ethanol. Although a policy of preferential procurement of ethanol by OMCs exists, the country is now witnessing a situation where installed ethanol production capacity is growing faster than the procurement demand. You see, this capacity was increased at the behest of the government. They wanted us to increase their capacity, so investments have gone into it. And as a result, the OMCs are not always able to absorb the entire ethanol output, leading to underutilization of the existing capacity. So that's a major issue we are facing. So to ensure optimum utilization of ethanol plants and encourage further investments, the government may consider 3 points. One, the accelerating higher ethanol blending beyond E20 by promoting flex fuel and flex fuel hybrid vehicles on a larger scale. And it is heartening to see that during this 1 week, one two-wheeler and one four-wheeler have been rolled out on the road, which can take the various combinations of ethanol and petrol. Second, introducing long-term differential retail pricing policy for higher ethanol blends, like we are talking of E30, E50, E85, E100, to compensate consumers for a relatively lower mileage of ethanol blended fuel and encourage their adoption. And third one, creating a long-term roadmap for ethanol demand expansion that provides confidence to investors and lenders. Um, we cannot forget the fact that one fine day, entire ethanol procurement was stopped overnight, and the jerks, we are still feeling those those jerks, but that should not happen. Now, revision of ethanol procurement prices is another issue which we flagged in the meeting on 27th May. The current ethanol procurement prices for feedstock, particularly B heavy and sugarcane juice syrup, are becoming increasingly challenging for new projects. Now, rising capital cost, higher interest rates, and debt servicing obligations have significantly extended project payback period, affecting the bankability of new investments. That's a huge issue that we are facing. It's not only pertaining to cooperatives, but all the ethanol producers. A comprehensive review of ethanol pricing is therefore required. The pricing mechanism should be based on a holistic cost benefit assessment of sugar production vis-a-vis ethanol production, taking into account 5 points. One, the national energy security benefit, the saving in foreign exchange through reduced crude oil imports, which is a very hotly discussed topic currently, environmental and carbon reduction benefits, then farmer income stability, and long-term sustainability of investments in biofuel sector. Now, given the increasing volatility and cost of imported crude oil, timely revision of ethanol pricing and demand-side policy support will be critical to sustaining capacity expansion and achieving higher blending targets. Now we come to CBG. The compressed biogas. The sugar industry has significant potential to produce CBG using press mud, spent wash from molasses, distilleries, and bagasse, thereby promoting waste to wealth, circular economy, and sustainability. While the central and state governments have introduced various incentives for CBG production, no doubt, the key support schemes such as Central Financial Assistance, what we call CFA, and incentives for fermented organic manure, FOM, or LFOM, expires. It already expired on 31st March. Now, these should be renewed immediately with enhanced financial support to reflect rising project cost. Further, in my opinion, the government should also take a couple of steps like expand the gas grid network in major sugar producing states such as Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, and Haryana to enable CBG producers to inject gas directly into the city gas distribution network, ensuring assured long-term offtake arrangements. This is one major issue that even we are facing in Bihar, where there is no offtake arrangement immediately. Uh, so, provide viability gap funding for pipeline connectivity and gas evacuation infrastructure. And the last one, government has introduced a phased mandatory CBG blending obligation increase from 1% in 25-26 to 5% in 28-29, creating assured demand for CBG, which is very, very encouraging. To ensure timely achievement of these targets, blending progress should be monitored closely on the lines of ethanol, EBP, enabling early resolution of bottlenecks relating to project implementation, gas grid connectivity, and CBG offtake. Sorry, it was very longish answer to your first question.
No, sir. It's very important. Actually, you have elaborated it perfectly well, and this is where actually what we need the long or short, but actually the real crux. Because sometimes what happens is that we start assuming that government is not doing sufficient, but at the same time, government is having its own challenges. At the same time, they are doing the best what is possible. I strongly believe that, but I totally agree with you, sir, that actually this unnecessary bonus to the grains, right, and subsidized grains being used is counterproductive for the sugar industry, which is being the only industry in India which is in the private sector is paying, or the cooperative sector is paying farmers the MSP declared by the government.
Very
So I
true.
think we have to we have to ensure that this sector becomes resilient and robust so that it becomes a benchmark for other industry in future as well. So that brings me to our next question, which is connected to what you just said. Sir, how can cooperative value chain aggregation be utilized to improve the economic resilience and processing returns for millions of smallholder sugarcane farmers? You talked about capital-based subsidies. Do you think government need to actually, this viability gap funding, they should look at it because, as I said, this is a very critical industry, and I don't think sufficient support being given, sir, frankly, if you ask me.
That's very, very valid question you asked. The cooperative value chain aggregation can significantly enhance farmer incomes and mill profitability by pooling resources, improving operational efficiency, and promoting diversification. Now, since many cooperative sugar mills operate at a relatively smaller scales, they can leverage the cooperative principles of cooperation among cooperatives to achieve economics of scale. And fortunately, Mr. Amit Shah is our cooperation minister, and he has been promoting this Sahkar Se Samruddhi, cooperation within cooperation. And this can facilitate the establishment of a sustainable capacity of ethanol distilleries and CBG plants, organic manure production units, while enabling the sharing of infrastructure, technology, logistics, marketing network among ourselves. That's what I'm trying to bring home the point. Such collaboration strengthens market access, improves bargaining power, reduces cost, and enhances overall competitiveness. By bringing millions of smallholder sugarcane farmers into an integrated cooperative framework, the sector can minimize inefficiencies, improve value realization across the supply chain, stabilize farmer income, and generate additional revenue stream beyond sugar. Essentially, I'm talking of the cluster approach. In essence, the cooperative value chain aggregation creates a more resilient, diversified, and sustainable sugarcane economy that benefits both farmers and cooperative sugar mills through enhanced processing returns and long-term economic stability, in my opinion.
Again, sir, very pertinent points. Sir, this brings me to another, I would say, associated question. So, what are the primary financing to transition into production of high-value specialty sugars? Because that could be something not in our overall industry.
Your voice is breaking, but I hope my voice is reaching you.
Yeah, your voice is reaching.
Okay, great.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, now
Sir,
it's fine. I got your question. Okay, great.
Sir, please.
The transition towards specialty sugars such as pharma-grade sugar, refined sugar, sulfur-free sugar, liquid sugar products is strategically important but operationally challenging. Let us accept that. The major hurdles are high capital investments. Specialty sugar in manufacturing requires modernization of clarification system, refined filtration units, automated packaging systems, and advanced quality control laboratories. Many cooperative mills operate with constrained balance sheets and limited access to affordable capital. So this is my first challenge. The second one I see, the technology upgradation. Existing plants were originally designed for conventional plantation white sugar. Now transitioning to specialty products require process redesigning, automation, and energy efficient system, which is possible, but it's going to be challenging. The third one is market access and branding limitations. Specialty sugars requires strong institutional marketing channels and export linkages. Cooperatives often lack dedicated branding and retail positioning and international certification support. Of course, we are working on this now. One single brand for cooperative sugar produce a pan-India. Let's see how fast we can come out of that. The next one is stringent quality compliances. Specialty sugar market requires consistent ECOMSA standards, traceability, food safety certification, and pharmaceutical grade compliances. Now, maintaining uniform quality across seasons is another challenge. The last but not the least, the supply chain and strategic constraints. Specialty products require controlled packaging, warehousing, and logistic systems. Export-oriented products also require efficient port connectivity and container handling. Fortunately, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Gujarat, who are port-based, they have an advantage, but not the other cooperatives across the other states. Now, that I think covers your the working capital, of course.
100%, sir.
No. Working capital is something very important. Higher inventory costs and longer receivable cycle creates additional financial stress for cooperative mills already burdened with several cane payment obligations. So therefore, modernization support should include not only capital subsidy, but also technology partnerships, export facilitation, branding assistance, and working capital support mechanism.
Perfect. So Prakashji, this is actually a very important question in the sense, though I was trying to steer away with it for very simple reason that actually I think this is a little bit of a controversial point. But I would receive a couple of WhatsApp messages that please do ask this also. So I indulge with you in the same question. So as an advisor to the government, how do you balance consumer affordability mandates with the urgent need for cooperative modernization subsidies at the same time? The MSP part of it. There has been a lot of debate about like increasing MSP 10%, 15%. Somebody says should not be increased. Some says 10% is good. And rather don't do it or do it at least 30% or make it 55 or 50. Where do you stand as like, advisor to the government? What is your stand that actually what government should be doing it? My apologies. I didn't wanted to put this question, but there has been at least 7 WhatsApp messages to me to that, sir.
I understand. I perfectly understand. I know it's a very tricky question, but I'll try and sail through with my skill. Let me see. Well, this balance is very critical because the sugar sector serves both economic and social objectives, as you know. While consumers need protection from inflationary pressures, the cooperative sugar mills support millions of farmers and rural households and must modernize to remain competitive and sustainability. I must make a mention here, the cooperative model is unique in its own nature. It's formed by mills, managed by them, and the profit sharing is again paid back in the form of additional cane price. So there is no word profit in the balance sheet of cooperative sugar mills. It might be very surprising for the audience to know that if there is no profit, why the hell we are in the business? The cooperative's principle itself is serving, not profiteering. So therefore, the solution lies in creating calibrating the approach. The calibrated approach, in my opinion, would be one, promoting diversification into ethanol, CBG, cogeneration, specialty products. This reduces dependence on sugar revenues and lesser pressure on the sugar prices. That is one direction that we can take. Second, modernization support should focus on technology upgradation, energy efficiency, waste to wealth initiatives, and environmental compliances. Third one, the financial assistance can be linked to measurable outcomes such as improved sugar recovery, lower emissions, timely farmer payments, renewable energy generations, and water use efficiency. And the last, but not the least, is modernized mills. Modernized mills become more productive and more cost efficient, ultimately benefiting both producers and consumers. See, cooperative modernization should be viewed not merely as an industrial subsidy, but as an investment in rural livelihoods, energy security, and sustainable agriculture. The objective is not to choose between consumers and cooperatives. No, we need not differentiate these two, but to build a diversified, efficient, and sustainable sugar economy that should benefit both. It's going to be a balancing act, which we are trying to do.
Perfect, sir. Thanks a lot, Prakashji. In fact, we are so grateful for you to join. And I think we are having the first time, in the cooperative sector, a dedicated Ministry of Cooperation, right? Which can connect all the dots. And that too headed by one of the, I would say, smartest politician come administrator, Shri Amit Shah ji.
Yes.
Supported by Mr. Harshvardhan Patel, Dilip Sanghani. These are the people from the grassroots level that have created cooperative models in Maharashtra, for example, or in Gujarat, Sanghani Saab. So I think we are having a great supported by professionals like you who understand this sector pretty well, or Mr. KJ Patel. So, sir, I think we are very hopeful that the cooperative sector of India is able to serve our farmers better than in past. And looking forward to have more engagement with you. Thanks a lot, Prakashji. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Pleasure here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So now we move from overall macroeconomics, the policy aspect, to the people who are head deep in trade itself. And with that, I would like to invite our next speaker, Shri Kapil Nimaji. He's an accomplished sugar industry executive, serving as Deputy Executive Director for Sugar and Ethanol Business at Dalmia Bharat Sugar and Industries Limited. He specializes in managing integrated bioenergy operations and driving large-scale corporate policy advocacy across Indian agriculture economy. His strategic expertise focuses on navigating the sweetener to biofuel nexus, transforming traditional milling infrastructure into modern bioenergy hubs, and optimizing factory capacities to maximize the ethanol blending and renewable energy output. Welcome, Kapil Bhai. Pleasure to have you, sir. Sir, are you able to hear me? Some of you are not able to hear you, sir. And Neeraj, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Zoom is having this problem for past couple of days, actually. I don't know why. Kapil, can you just try to re-log in? I think that could solve the problem.
Am I audible now?
No, I can hear you. No,
okay.
Yes, sir. Great.
Hi, Deepak. Sorry for, these technical challenges are sometimes beyond everyone's control.
No, Kapil Bhai. Kapil bhai, Zoom is trending for past 2 days, actually, like, on all the technical channels for this issue, right? In fact, Neeraj yesterday got stuck actually in our second session because Zoom decides sometime to, like, mute some voices. I think maybe they are now having AI that now we are having Kapil Nima, who is actually an aggressive voice, right? Not give voice to him. So, sir,
No,
it
no,
was
not
it
at
was conspiracy by Zoom, not us. So, first question to you, Kapil bhai, it's really a pleasure and like, to have a great speaker like you on board. So Kapil bhai, what are the primary capital and technical challenges in transforming traditional sugar milling infrastructure into modern integrated bioenergy hubs, according to you?
Uh, Deepak bhai, a very interesting question, I think, to start the session with. I think, the first thing we need to understand is that we need to recognize that this transformation is much bigger than a diversification project. Initially when this whole movement started, it was more like a diversification from sugar to ethanol. But actually, we are now essentially moving from a traditional sugar manufacturing platform to a more modern bioresource utilization model, where the objective now is to become to utilize the maximum value from every ton of biomass which is being harvested from the fields. Specifically, talking about a capital perspective, the main challenge, I will say, the most significant challenge today is the investments which are required. Because when we talk about a sugar industry and its diversification, or its diversification into various value added products, we are talking about huge investments. And we have we have to talk about investments which are required in the utilities, specifically storage infrastructure, where you need a lot of storage for the raw material and final processed goods. Feedstock handlings, very very for environment, from environment perspective, which are very the norms are very high. We need a strong effluent management systems. Water recycling, which is very important for ensuring that the water recyclability reduces water wastage. Power balancing, where we in minimum power spendings we can optimize or utilize the maximum output from it. And of course, the most important today, as an industry, we are facing is how we digitalize the entire control systems to get the right the right numbers of from the production, and ensure the overall efficiency improves. And economics of these assets across the value system, everything is interconnected now. So the success now depends on how effectively we are using it. Similarly, apart from the capital challenge, the second importance is the technical challenge. When we are talking about an integrated system, we are talking about right from procurement from the ground to the final output, which can be for a sugar mill, can be a sugar, integrated sugar mill can be sugar, CBG, ethanol. If you are doing a dual feed ethanol as well, it becomes the grain ethanol, the DDGS. So one input, and there are multiple outputs now which are there. So handling all this, ensuring that there's a proper streamlining which is between the inputs and the outputs, becomes very important. And last and not the least is one thing what we are seeing is happening. It's becoming a big challenge. Is the skilled talents in the industry. The industry, if you've seen last 3-4 years, have actually grown significantly. From barely 100 all ethanol mills 5 years back, we are close to 450 ethanol plants today. And the technical requirement to run these plants, there's a huge investments which have gone in. And to maintain the efficiencies, it's very important that you have the right skilled labor. And I will say, we actually, from the industry side, we see a major shortage in that today. So that is one perspective, apart from capital and technical infrastructure which is required, is the manpower, the skilled manpower, which is right now is actually lacking and needs a lot of I will say, focus.
Perfect. No, totally agree with you, Kapil bhai. The manpower drives industries and their success. And I think we are lacking, and I think this is time we should work on that. Now, next question to you, sir. How do you dynamically optimize the factory processing capacity when the sweetener to biofuel nexus requires constant real-time adjustment between sugar and ethanol production and also feedstock, right? So these are the challenges actually which industry is having. How do you solve this puzzle, sir?
Interesting. So, Deepak, we are actually, if you look at it as a sugar industry, we are moving out from that perspective where, the traditional mindset of a sugar industry was to maximize the sugar production within, whatever the sugar crushing cycle or sugar crushing period it used to be. And now from that era of maximizing sugar, we are trying to do maximizing the value-added products. Now, now every ton of cane which we are harvesting has now multiple pathways for value creation. And depending on the market creations, to create the right balance between these products becomes very important. And to support that, what is more important is how the policy frameworks are, how the policy is supporting that. And if you look at it today, the same feedstocks today can be converted into sugar, it can convert into ethanol and power, and a combination of all this, which gives us a bigger challenge how to optimize everything. And when you design the entire industry from scratch to the final product, to take care of all these variables become very important. So when these variables comes into place, the variables like sugar prices comes into place, what is the ethanol procurement price which is prevalent comes into place. How do we manage the inventories, how long the inventories have to be kept, what are the export opportunities there is again becomes a very important part, because in case of a surplus here, specifically in ethanol like this what we have. And when we saw that there was an issue in US about with the corn crop, and the corn ethanol prices were going up, there was a huge opportunity for India to export ethanol when we were sitting at a surplus. But unfortunately, as you know, the policy was not there to export ethanol. I mean, we couldn't do anything. So policy enablement becomes again a very key part when you when you look at optimizing the entire processing facility here.
Perfect. No, I totally agree. Like, policy has to be supportive in a way, actually, like, whenever there are opportunities, because we live in a very dynamic environment now, right? So you have a short windows. If we are not able to do something in that short window, then actually, like, overall possibility of leverage just disappears. So that brings me to my next question. From a corporate policy advocacy perspective, what legislative frameworks are urgently required to stabilize the financial architecture of domestic bioenergy sectors? We have been talking about a lot of things, but end of the day, what, according to you, two, three key policy decision government should take? From my side, I'll just add very recently, like, I loved one of the great LinkedIn posts which we have done, right, of two vehicles, a two-wheeler and a four-wheeler being released. My concern is that actually, like, when I look at the economic dynamics of it, right, there is a challenge because the cost of the vehicles are high, and whatever the 20 rupees or 20% delta they are getting on a better price, it get eroded in the overall mileage itself. Now, until unless government comes and reduce the GST from 18% to say 5%, right, on flexi fuel, because it is also environmentally sensitive area where government want to go for, like, about 2027 net zero. So I think it serves a bigger purpose. Do you see, at least I see that actually we should push for 5% GST or the lower slab of GST on flexi fuel vehicle. Other than these, what are other areas you feel that legislation should support?
You're right. I think it was a launch to show the intent, I will say. But government is very clear with this launch that the intent is there. The roadmap has to come in. So that brings me to answer your first question is that we need a concrete roadmap. We saw the first roadmap which showed us a path till 25-26 where the E20 was a target. We achieved that in time. Now we need the second roadmap and policy enablement along to reach to that path. And uh, you're right that the cost gets mitigated in terms of the efficiency, but similar to that, you need to understand that uh, I mean, if you take an example of the EV vehicles, we have seen huge policy incentives which came along with EV vehicles, the FAME benefits which were given. Initially when the EVs were launched, people were getting income tax benefits as well in India. But still, if you look at the overall penetration of EVs, it is still 2 to 3%, and that too because of the infrastructure which is available. It is more concentrated to the urban area. The good part about ethanol is it can directly penetrate into rural area with the right policies. Government is working on allowing the sugar industry to come up with their own ethanol pumps. So EVs, while they have a constraint that they cannot get into the rural or a semi-urban area very fast, ethanol can directly reach there with a more optimized cost, which a more optimized outflow of a fuel for a rural citizen. We need to understand that when a sugar industry is investing into a business like ethanol, it comes with a perspective of at least 15 to 20 years. And that's why a roadmap becomes very critical when it specifically comes from the government about a mandate, like on a net zero, what we are trying to achieve by 2070. With the with E85, we're talking about almost 60 to 65% lower greenhouse gases emission. It is quite significant. The kind of the kind of air we are living in today in India, it needs a major challenge. I want to give an example, parallel example of what happened in Brazil. If you look at a city like Sao Paulo in 70s, 80s was living in an AQI of 150 to 200, and in bad days it used to go to 250 as well. What we generally see in India as well. Today, after after the flexi fuels were launched, after the biofuel program, the Renovate, what they call, is was launched. Today the eqi levels have come down to 50, 60. It took time. It took almost 20, 25 years to achieve that. But this is something we need to target, and that in Brazil it happened because there was a policy which was there, which was clearly defined. People acknowledged it. The in private investments uh, borrowed it, got it executed, and the country is doing fairly well, and something which we should learn and try to implement on.
Perfect. Kapil bhai, just out of the box thought, right? Is it a possibility that ethanol companies, right, which are having so much of surplus capacity, end up having the fleet of cars and lease it to the car drivers, right? For EV, it happened, right? The people, they bought the cars in large deals, right? 500 cars, 1,000 cars, and then they leased it, right, to Ubers and the Olas of the world. Do you think ethanol industry can also look at, because now you'll be allowed to give E100 at least, right, at your own centers? So do you think that that could be a possibility of ensuring that the utilization of ethanol processing facilities can be taken care of?
Well, again, out of the box solution to it is, in place of looking at leasing out cars, we need to look at converting the trucks and tractors which are used in harvesting in sugar industry to convert to use ethanol. And it's a major if you look at the consumption, what happens in those in those vehicles. So I mean, there are immense possibilities. What personally I will believe is sugar industry is not a car leasing agency. I don't think they will get into a leasing model, but they can definitely support the ecosystem which is within the sugar industry, which is used within the sugar industry, and look at it. Apart from ethanol, they can also look at converting into running on CBGs, because a lot of investments from sugar industry is happening on CBG through press mud and spent wash, which is coming out. So you can have multiple solutions if the policies are properly framed out.
Kapil bhai, only one suggestion to the ethanol industry in India, because my experience tells me that once when the Prime Minister was Chief Minister, he said, "Asarkari hai asarkari." That means anything which is non-governmental is effective. So I believe, like in ethanol industry, will have to find their own ways and means, depending on the policy. Believe me, it is a dangerous territory to be in, because you know that how politically sensitive the agriculture is. With this small comment, thanks a lot, Kapil bhai. It was pleasure to have you and have a great engagement and discussion. And keep writing beautiful posts. Like I definitely sometimes counter you, but at the same time, right, I love reading you. And the reason I counter you is to learn from you, not to like discourage. Thank you, sir. Pleasure to have you.
There's always discussions with you have always been mutually beneficial, I will say. It's something new to learn every time. And please keep countering me so that I can learn new things. Thank you.
So looking forward. Thank you. So now we are having our next speaker, and Dapper Raviji is looking smarter than ever. Such a charm today, sir. Actually, आज क्या खाया है आपने
सैटरडे है
सुबह?
भाई। आपने आपने सैटरडे को बुलाया है, तो दिस इज सैटरडे फ्रेशनेस।
Awesome, sir. So
And
let me
I'm
introduce you,
also,
sir, first. So
yeah.
let me introduce you first. So Ravi Gupta ji is a highly distinguished agribusiness executive serving as an executive board member at Sri Renuka Sugars Limited, a global leader in sugar refining. He specializes in the strategic integration of cross-border sugar and ethanol value chains, managing large-scale industrial refining asset across India and Brazil. His core competency centers on alignment of multinational corporate operations with national green energy mandates, navigating global soft commodity surpluses, and directing the high-level international trade and risk management framework. Sir, of late we have seen that actually you are pretty active in policy advocacy. You are launching flexi fuel vehicles. Other day you are talking to media, explaining them actually why the biofuels are so important. Sir, I would like to have your perspective. How do you see the biofuel sector as a, I would say, someone who is leader in understanding multiple aspects of global trade? You understand Brazil, you understand India, you understand Europe, you understand sugar, you understand ethanol. So according to you, what is the direction and the way forward, sir?
Thank you, Deepak, for having me. And first of all, let me congratulate you for this amazing channel and amazing platform which you have created. In fact, I logged in a little bit earlier, and I was able to get the wisdom from Mr. Sood, Mr. Naik Nawari, and Kapil. Amazing discussions, and it was very, very, the perspective was really nice. Now, coming to your question, how we are proceeding, how the flexi fuel cars or the government mechanism of policy is helping the biofuel. I think government has most strategically thinking about turning the Indian economy into a biofuel economy. Waste to wealth is something which is in the mind of the government since last decade. And if you look at it, sometime it might see that it is an interruption in the policy. Actually, there is no interruption. The policy is sailing every day. New things are being done. New vision is being brought, and so on and so forth. This has happened not only in the field of ethanol, it has happened in the field of 2G ethanol, SAF, CBG, which you are saying, green hydrogen in parallel, and several steps are being taken to convert this economy into a biofuel economy and renewable biofuel economy. See, if you see recently, you will realize the pace at which government is moving. I mean, we reached 20% ethanol blend in how many years? Roughly around 10 years, 12 years. Brazil took at least 2 decades to do that. And after 20 years, when the government realized that there is a surplus capacity in terms of ethanol, we can produce more ethanol. Processing capacity is not a limitation. The feedstocks has been multiplied from sugarcane to maize to the rice. So the government now took a very aggressive next step of introducing the flex fuel cars. So motorcycle, Hero Motor has already launched, and now you see the most mass car which is being used, WagonR, is also come as flexi fuel. And look at the action of the government. Yesterday they have also launched E85, and E85 priced based on the mileage difference between the petrol and ethanol. So the efforts of the government is absolutely on the right track. And while we might think that there is a policy delay and but government is waiting for the right opportunity, and when the right opportunity comes, they are striking it hard. And this launch of flexible cars and the presence of two ministers while on the launch of both the Hero motorcycles as well as Maruti, both the ministers were present. Nitin Gadkari, whom I will call honorable minister, whom I call is basically the one who originated the idea of biofuel in the country, along with the petroleum minister, Mr. Hardeep Puri. being present on this forum itself says that government is committed to it, and the actions are visible. You know, the E85 you can see now is priced at 82 rupees versus petrol at 102, and this basically takes care of the differential mileage which is there. So I think, and now on the other hand, CBG is concerned. You know, CBG, the expansion is happening at a very fast pace. The problem which are glitches, which are in terms of disposal of LFM, with the problem in terms of the grid injections, everything is happening in parallel and at a fast pace. So I think the Indian economy is will whole waste to wealth concept is will pick up, and you will see the result in years to come.
Very well articulated, sir. And I think you are right that the government is having heart at the right place to start with. And these delays we are seeing, sir, actually, you see, this West Asian crisis, right? It was very difficult for anybody to anticipate, right? And those things will slow down because even government is having limited, mind space, whether they should be looking at the current crisis or they should be looking at policy, which can, even if delayed by say 15, 20 or 30 days, is not going to impact. And it is rightly said, both the minister being there. So that shows there is a sync, right? Unfortunately, otherwise what happens is that if I'm a petroleum minister, I would say, no, forget about ethanol, right? Petrol should be pushed because that is what my industry, and we are seeing that in one ministry per se, which is having two departments, those conflicts very visible. At least here, two different ministries, they are working in sync. That's a positive part of it. Now, sir, taking you to the current hat. So we have seen a beautiful reports that Renuka Sugar and Adani Wilmar Limited, or AWL now, they are be actually distributing Madhur, which I actually like. Whenever I have some savories created in my house, we use it. Generally, I avoid sugar, but I do have a sweet tooth. We use it. Sir, what was the thought behind it? And I think it is taking the media by storm because this is one of huge partnership. Your views on that, sir?
See, normally I avoid talking about the own company on such forums, but since you raised it, let me just broadly.
No, Ravi bhai, I had no intention, but the reason is that this is the template I want to see in future, right?
Yeah.
More collaboration. Why to create multiple, redundancies? Please, sir.
Right, right. No, a fair point. So what is happening, and this is in general, I'm talking about, Indian industry, what we need to do. See, globally, how the large corporates are work, they use each other's strength to make the pie bigger, right? And that is what Indian corporate should also do and openly do. Every specialization may not be within the same company, so you have to use the strength of each other company to make the pie much bigger. So one of the objective of this was that use the strength of a company which are very good in distribution, which is very good in grocery distribution supply chain, and use the strength where there is a production strength, and combine the strength and to give the best of the product to the consumer.
Perfect, sir. So one more, now moving to again a little bit beyond the distribution part of it. So we are seeing that the global sugar numbers, right, has been so far positive. But at the same time, we are seeing that Indian numbers revised downside. And maybe that has triggered where actually the government has eventually banned the export of sugar. Sir, in this scenario, actually being someone who is having cross-border trades, how it impact the business and also the trust factor, because beyond India, whenever somebody would be getting into a contract with an Indian sugar supplier, he might say that actually even after a clear policy coming out from the government for 2 million metric tons, and in fact revising upward, increasing the overall export quota, right? Just a few, I think a month and a half back, suddenly one fine day you say sorry, let's ban it. They could have done with reducing it, because as such also the pickup was not that huge, but the messaging actually it is not very positive. In fact, I'll be visiting London. I'm flying tonight. I will be answering this question frankly, because when you go to the global forums, right, it is very difficult to defend the indefensible. Your views on that, sir, and some I would say tips for me and rest of the people who go globally, right, to answer such questions.
So No, I think your concerns are quite genuine. This is not an ideal situation that you switch on and switch off. This is not absolutely not an ideal situation. But the reality, Deepak, is that we are dealing with the agriculture crop. When we started the talks of exports and 2 million ton of exports, the country was expected to produce 34.5 million ton of gross sucrose. Actually, that production came out to be 31.5. So a large economy, you're with 140 crore of population, you have to balance the food security along with your other objective. The government stated policy is very, very clear. The government stated policy is first domestic consumption, then ethanol, and then export. And I think it is not something that which government has not made it known, right? I think the way to handle this policy is essentially you have to think as an industry that what will you do if you are the government? The answer will come to you automatically, right? It was not difficult to anticipate that we may not have enough for exports, right? Look at from government point of view, somebody who is sitting on that chair, they are relying on the information which is on the grassroots. Even everybody's assessment was 34.5, right? And it also worked on 34.5. If the crop turns out to be lower for any reason, for lower yields, for faster crushing, for so and so forth, you have to act. So I know that this is not ideal. I know when you will be going to London, people will ask, what is this India? Sometimes you start it, sometimes you stop it, right? But at the same time, just look at it rationally. Are we doing the wrong thing? If the estimate gets revised, obviously you have to look at 140 crore people first, then to look at, continuing something just for the sake of it and hampering your own people. So I think, and I tell you, this nothing is sudden, right? There is enough signal that this might be curtailed,
True.
right? So the interaction, the consultations are seamless, right? That's why there is no big haha when this thing happened. Of course, there were some people who already have contract, they would have suffered around it, and government also relies on what industry tell them. So you have to take it. This is not ideal. I'm not defending it, but this is something which is beyond somebody's comprehension to know that the gross production 34.5 and it comes to 31. What do you do?
Right. So, Ravi bhai, this brings me to last and very important pertinent question. See, the problem is that our monitoring mechanism and the data discovery mechanism itself, right? Some of the smaller countries which are having high stakes, for example, Thailand, they are monitoring on 15 days basis. USDA every 10 to 15 days, they have internal data, but they release sometime in 15 days or a month. Worst is within a month, right? We talk about first estimate, second estimate, third estimate, and fourth estimate for a crop which is 8 to 12 months long. Right? I think until unless we don't invest in collecting data at the grassroots level using technology, we'll keep on having a wrong data and we won't be dynamic, right? So what happens is between first one estimate and another estimate, things change, and then it looks abrupt. If those estimates are released by the government or even I'm saying some of the association which are coming up with SND, if they release it in the right appropriate time every 15 days, people will know that actually there is a challenge of production slowly and the government will take that policy. And even government can very easily, I would say, codify the policy that in case my production is less than 30 million metric tons, I'm not going to allow any export. So I'm giving you 2 million metric tons, but if production comes below 30 million ton in any of the estimates, I'm stopping it. So I think everybody will have a certainty, even people outside India. The problem is that, sir, when the trust is lost in a trade, I would have asked you to ship me 200,000 metric tons of sugar. And then you say, sorry, my government has stopped me to export. Right? It is just not the cake on the face of the government. It is also on the cake on your face. And the next time when actually they open and you go to him and say that, hey, I want to sell sugar to you, he says, sorry, Ravi bhai, you are a great gentleman. In London, I will have a coffee or a glass of whiskey with you. But my apologies, shakkar ki baat nahi karte. Let's not talk sugar. So, sir, don't you think the industry need to invest more in people like me who are trying to give the right monitoring, right tools to ensure that we have a faster estimate, sir?
Deepak, I could not have agreed with you more on this. this is something which we need to invest. We have to take it very, very seriously. That the estimation of production should be uh, really live, and it is possible. The advantage of sugar industry is that we are, let's say, 540 mils or 550 mils. We all know our catchment area, right? So let's say if the catchment area is 15 kilometers, right? It's in UP, but in Maharashtra it is, but generally a catchment of 15 kilometers for a sugar mill. If that sugar mill cannot assess the production of that 15 kilometers, there is something wrong which is happening, right? So obviously there is need to invest a lot in the data forecasting and which relates to production. Consumption more or less is known, it doesn't change too much, right? But production data sanctity and data reliability has to be made stronger, definitely. And my belief is that it can be done. It needs that focus, right? And now not only the physical surveys, we have the technology to do it, right? We have AI driven surveys. We can do geotaggings, and there are so many things which we can do normally, and that is something which we must invest in. And there is and unless we invest in, because today it is not just sugar, it is also that you have to rely on your ethanol program. So your responsibility is not towards the consumer who is eating food. Your responsibility is also to the consumer who are running a vehicle, right? So this data investment is the key thing. So two three key factors which industry will have to invest in. Number one, data sanctity, right, and reliability. So that is something which is very, very important. Number second, how do we reduce the cost of sugar? And when I say cost of sugar, we are almost the most efficient in the world in terms of the processing cost. When I say cane cost to the sugar, so the processing, we are the cheapest. But how do we grow more cane within the same land? How do we reduce water to grow that cane? Right? The things which really will make a difference. For example, I'll tell you UP, just one variety of cane. You had 20% extra yield, right, from the same farm, right? And that is what suddenly created a big efficiency. It is income in the pockets of the farmer. It is the income for the whole supply chain. So in terms of better varieties of sugarcane, variety of sugarcane which is drought resistant, the variety of sugarcane which can give you more yield, so that is something which we need to do. I think what flexi fuel cars will do, that it will basically make your one sector of sugar market driven, which will be ethanol, right? So slowly, we should keep going away from the government policies to a market-driven economy, and which is possible when we reduce our cost, and government can play that factor through the tax changes. For example, just to give an example, today the ethanol E85 is at 82 rupees because the petrol is at 102, right? And the tax GST on ethanol is 18%, and it is working almost well. You don't have to reduce it today. Tomorrow, if the crude prices become, let's say, $30, right? Then this 102 goes back to, let's say, 80 rupees, right? Then you have to reduce the cost of ethanol to 65, but your cost of production of ethanol will be higher. That is the time when government has to intervene through the tax concessions or the incentive to make the ethanol viable. But that incentive should be market driven incentive, right? So that you have a market economy as far as ethanol is concerned. What ideally I would like to see, that ethanol part of the business become totally market driven. There is no procurement, and the people have the petrol pump. Sugar mills have their own ethanol dispensing station, and it serves the rural population, which I think eventually is what India will go to.
And Ravi bhai, actually, just one more suggestion, or I would say intervention, because you talk about at the I would say the broader perspective of the industry itself, right? So when we talk about think leadership, which you are doing exactly now, sir, it needs support through scientific research papers, right? I have seen, sir, and just not in sugar, in multiple associations or the industry bodies, what happens is that you go with your thought process, your agenda, 2 pages. which goes to ICR or National Institute of Agriculture Economics, or it goes to Indian Economic Research Council, and then they work in a scientific way without even engaging with you and come out with something actually which is 360 degree of what you have actually suggested. And government and the bureaucrats read that. I think all the association industry body, they need to actually take support of economists, right? Dig more data and create more, I would say, the narrative, right, which is laced with scientific evidences and econometric models. I think that is what is lacking, because sir, what we are saying is the future, but that future comes after all the, like, falls, or it comes straight through as a highway. That depends on, like, feeding the right information. And I think, sir, it's a high time, like, industry has to start thinking more scientifically. Currently, I think that is lacking, sir. Your views on this, sir?
Deepak, I note what you say, but let me surprise you with something. The kind of research which is there, sugar industry and automotive industry, will surprise you. I think the research which is done in India is not nowhere done in the world, right? It is in terms of sugar technology or production. It is distillation technology or production, right? Automotive research, which IARI and IOC has done together, is something mind-boggling. I would encourage you, because you're the person who believes in knowledge. Just look at some of the research which has been conducted, and these are live researches. Conventional wisdom was that, since ethanol has 30% of less caloric value, so the mileage will be 30% less, right? But the real research is not 30% less. It is less than 30%, right? These research are real, done by the IARI and IOC, their authorities, which is so. In terms of technical research, we have enough, right? But there is a component of research which you mentioned, which we are lacking, which we should do, and that is the economic research. What is the impact of high price of ethanol in the overall economy? Right? These are the economic research. When you do this economic research, then you will realize what a multiplier difference the ethanol program is blending is making as far as economy is concerned. It is not just saving the foreign exchange. It is not just only the environment. It is the circular economy in which the person at the last mile, which is your farmer or the labor, is getting benefited. That economic research, which earlier human body used to do, we have to have bodies or the thinkers like you get involved and forum like this to see the overall impact of these programs on the Indian economy. So that economic research is need to come, which has not come. Another research part which we need to do, Deepak Bhai, is that we are afraid of taking strong decision because we think that the administratively it may not be possible. For example, if you ask me today, the worst thing in this industry is doing is to burn spent wash into boilers, right? You are putting spent the nutrients and burning it, then giving it to the air. What we need to do is what Brazil has done, which is called fertirrigation. We are afraid of doing fertility irrigation, that the whole process might be misutilized, right? But the research which we need to do is that how do we take the help of technology to monitor that the fertility irrigation is done, right, on a monitored basis, and do that. And this is possible today. Everything through the AI can be monitored. The tank which is going to the farm, right? The spray which is happening at the farm can be monitored through the AI in the central server. These are the two researches which you need to do, that how do we make it up. As far as technology is concerned, I think this country has tremendous research, tremendous. I mean, I'm really, sometimes I really think that we should put all this research together, and this will be a document which people will use for years. National Sugar Institute, Vasantdada Sugar Institute, National Sugar Federation, India Automobile Research Institute, IOC its own R&D. Amazing. But economic research and this research which I am talking to make the application possible is something which we do, which I agree with you.
Right. Perfect, Ravi bhai. So you have given me one task. I'll ensure that, sir, all the technical research from different silos. Luckily, God has been kind. I do have accesses to the research institute, which are controlled by government or semi-government institution. I'll collect it. We will use AI tools to summarize it and put it in one repository in next 2 months. That I assure you, sir. All the research, there would be one sugar research portal as a part of KYC website itself. Definitely, it will be free of cost. We are not looking for any money out of it. But you'll have to go to my website. That at least you'll have to do. Thank you, Ravi bhai.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. And sugar industry will welcome such efforts if you come out with something interesting. As far as economic research is concerned, I think you should use the intellect of the foreign universities because they have done little bit better job than ours. Their economists, I think they have a more holistic view. So I look forward to that, and thank you for having me on your channel. And I wish you all the very best. I follow it closely, so all the very best, and thank you for having me here.
Thanks a lot. Now, with that, we go to our next speaker, a very prolific voice, Shri Praful Vitlani ji. He's a prominent commodity merchant and proprietor of JK Sugars, boasting decades of continuous commercial experience within the Indian sweetener sector. He specializes in domestic market sentiment analysis, localized price forecasting, and managing the intricate logistics of physical sugar distribution. His expertise focuses on building a highly efficient, responsive supply chain network that serves an extensive portfolio of retail and industry food manufacturer clients across the country. Praful bhai, namaste. Pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deepak bhai. Thank you.
Sir, first question, very burning question. Sir, इतने कंफ्यूज है डेटा से, राइट? पता ही नहीं है कि हिंदुस्तान में कितनी शक्कर है, राइट? Your views, like कितनी what are our numbers? Sir? Production number क्या है? Demand तो we all know, and how do you see going forward even for the next season? Right, there is apprehension कि El Nino के चक्कर के अंदर शायद we might see further downside. Sir, your views on numbers because I've found your number to be pretty interesting and pretty close to the realities. Over to you, Praful bhai.
Thank you, Deepak bhai. Thank you very much. We were having opening stock of 47 lakh metric ton as on 1st of October 2025. We found sucrose that's around 305. Of that, after diversion to the ethanol, we produce sugar 278. And total sugar availability becomes 325. As far as my company is concerned, Jagjivan Kesori and Company, our number for the consumption is 285 and 8 lakh ton as I spoke. So 293 is the sugar for domestic as well as the export. And we are likely to left with 32 lakh metric ton as on 30th September 2026. See, I did attend last 10 minutes of respected Ravi bhai regarding the association which I founded, All India Sugar Trade Association. From day one, I have put a note that our association will not put any number of forecast on or before 4th week of the January, because technicality and all other things which you said that does work very well. But at the same time, the ground level, our sugar millers, say 15 kilometer, 25 kilometer, they knows very well. And this group, what we predicted in 10 years, out of that 4 times, we have clicked the bullseye on the production number. And remaining 6 years, yes, we went wrong, but never more than 5%. And mostly at 2 or 3%. And this, my small experience of 48 years in sugar, what I learned is that earlier 2 central government, that is one of Indira Gandhi and one of Charan Singh, was collapsed because of the sugar pricing. And because of that, after that, whichever government came, they were usually having a thumb rule of keeping 6 million ton of closing stock, whereas this year we are at 3.2. Now, how will it reflect for the next season? Say, next season, we need, government will take care that we need 5 million ton closing stock minimum. There will be no change in consumption of 28.5. So what next season India want is 33.5, only the sugar. So if you reduce 32 lakh ton closing stock, there should be the sugar production of 303 lakh ton to balance out this deficit. So particularly, of course, any research or everything is do welcome. But after all, the population which India needs and what our Minister Prahlad Joshi and our Food Secretary Sanjeev Chopra always says that first priority will be always for domestic availability, that India should not import. Second priority will be given to ethanol. And then the third priority will go to export if any excess. I do agree that it was a really, if government one policy regarding ethanol is to be done in the month of November, before November, that how much diversion, because production goes between November to February or March, nothing more than that. The capacity, like ethanol, sugar production is also very much at higher stage. So season is becoming smaller. So at this stage, if we don't take a decision that how much sucrose will be diverted for ethanol, it will be tough to have always the sugar balance out in India. Or we have free trade, that if we have a smaller quantity of production and we have to balance out between ethanol and sugar, then that 60% import duty to be removed and have a free trade instead of such controlled sugar. So this is a small brief on nascent day of India.
No, sir, very well articulated. And sir, the upcoming season, though I'm not an expert on sugar cane, El Nino impact sugar cane as well. And this is, El Nino is not a short temporary phenomena where, like, for 15 days or 20 days you have a disruption. This is a long cycle. And we are seeing severe deficits in August. We are seeing severe deficit in September as well. And this is where only India get the moisture. And eventually after that, like, what we call winter rain, even that will get adversely be disturbed. High temperatures will sustain at least 2 degrees above normal for nearly whole of our winters. That also lead to evaporation. So I think going forward, the soil moisture is going to be a challenge. And I think based on my understanding, sugarcane is very sensitive to soil moisture for getting the right sucrose. So next year is going to be, I would say, baptization of fire for the government and the sector for sure. So my suggestion to all the people in the sugar and sugar-based ethanol industry is that keep your blinkers on. There is a storm coming our way. And let's pray to the God. In fact, sir, you are having so many gods behind you, right? We'll have to pray to him that actually the impact of El Nino should be as minimized as possible, which looks dangerous today. That brings me to my next very important and pertinent question. What specific variable drive the domestic prices when the domestic market sentiment is heavily influenced by policy rumors? Because we are seeing, sir, the rumor is one new industry which has got built, right, in multiple commodities. Right. Previously, it was only the pulses was having this virus, but now this virus has slowly spread to more industries, right, within the agriculture commodities. So now we are actually having freewheeling debates on policy changes on one commodity or another every day. One day it is sugar, other day it would be soya meal, the third day it would be oil seed. So now actually, whenever you open a channel, you are talking about speculative debates on what government policy would be, right? And that is creating a lot of challenges. And then the domestic price also reflect based on that, because a small trader definitely would look at those debates and take a call. Sir, how do you see that this impacting domestic prices more, sir?
Yeah, see, first of all, the sugar industry and sugar trade, fortunately, currently trade is not controlled by the central government. The sugar industry is fully controlled commodity by government of India. Say from sugarcane pricing as a FRP or even to sell finished products, how much quantity, in which month, that is dictated by the central government. And they are trying to manage the price which they desire in the market. So what are the policy decision which affects the sugar trade? Particularly, one should understand, a trader, that there are 6 states which are producing sugar, which they have access to give it to other states. There are 10 states, but 6 are the main player. First is the Maharashtra, Karnataka, UP, Uttaranchal. These 4 are the major. Minor are Gujarat and we can say Haryana. But main player are only 4 states. Now these states feed to the entire, say, 32 states of the India. Now the real policy making is only between October to March, and that are on the 3 front. One, how much will be the production of the sugar, what will be the availability of sucrose, and according to government, how much is allowing to make ethanol of that sucrose. What will be this one policy is the dynamic, and this plays a big role between October to December, where government also have a lot of pressure from capacity built up by the sugar industry to make ethanol from the sucrose. And at that time, what ratio goes, that, make a place that what will be the sugar price in the next season. Now, secondly comes whether India will come as an exporter or not. So that LIFE, NIBOT player, the fund managers, and they are looking very, very closely to the India. And the what export ban has taken place, as you rightly said, that if you go at London, they will give you coffee, not tea. At that time, the frankly speaking, this could have export decisions could have been avoided in the 25-26 while taking decision in January, and that what actual sugar production will be, where the error chances are very less. Yes, anything new technology, new innovations are always welcome from your side. If we can find out earlier in November itself with lower margin of error. The policy decisions are, as far as domestic market is concerned, are totally once in a month. That is the next month domestic sugar quota given by the government. That works. That is the only thing left. One, how much sucrose will be diverted to ethanol, how much export will be allowed, and which month how much sugar will be available for domestic. How much sugar will be available for domestic also sometimes decided as per the state-wise elections, or if there's a parliament election, while looking pricing. The unfortunate thing is this big departmental stores. Even when I came in 1978 or 80 into the business of sugar, I was learning that retailers were selling sugar at cost of parity in their warehouse, and they were earning from that 100 kg gunny bags while selling. That is their profit. At that time, when I went to Banyas and asked that why you are not making some profit of it, he says, we are not worried of earning anything from sugar. We keep a big board outside my retail shop that sugar is available at rupees 9 per kg. So customer comes into the shop, they buy all other commodities, wheat, rice, oil, everything. We earn from that. The attraction to the consumer is the what is the sugar price. Now what is happening today? Big Bazaar, you buy 500 rupees worth gross material of this agriculture commodities. 1 kg sugar is free with you. See, it is ultimately 8% of 500 rupees purchase. So why don't you put why not any other commodity but the sugar? That place the government eyes that earlier two central government were failed, and this is all the mess up with the sugar industry. I think it is too much now. It is need to be a free economy in sugar that can only help you bring or you export or you import or whatever it may be. But definitely, if the farmers and industry are to be kept safe and progressing, that 60% import duty is a very welcome step. It is the, we can say, definitely a security for the industry, and it should be continued.
Perfect, sir. Very well articulated. Now, Praful bhai, going to the last question because of your 5 decades of experience. According to you, like, coming to the distribution aspect from production, where are the greatest friction points occurring right now in domestic supply chain between mill dispatches and retail end users? So, because there is also, we are seeing a little bit of deformity formation happening, right? So, kahan pe you see there are frictions, sir?
There is no friction, Deepak bhai. Actually, there is no friction. The learning part to the FMCG or is from the wholesaler or semi-wholesaler. The sugar is transported from sugar mills to the wholesalers go down or say semi-wholesalers go down. I have one trader in Thane, Maharashtra. From 4 decades, what they do that whenever in morning the truck comes, they open their shop, though at 10 o'clock, they starts unloading at 7 o'clock. At they are good, they have kept is one small washroom for the drivers and cleaners, and they have a sour social responsibility. Then they give free breakfast tea to each and every driver and cleaner. They don't even cut possibly any your transportation charges from the driver if it is in transit get damaged because of their mistake or because of sugar mills moisture sugar is came or whatever may be. This so small social, what it results that whenever there is a shortage of trucks, logistic over there, they will pick up that these Thana traders I will take. That gets the highest priority. It is same reflects into the sugar industry also. If sugar mills keep subsidized mill for the driver and cleaner, because according to my eyes, driver and cleaners are child labor. If they are being taken care and if there are shortage in the logistic of supply, the first priority they will say, come on, I want sugar from Dalmia, all I want from Renuka, they are taking care of us. What is the care? Care is slightly anything. Is a washroom or say subsidized meal. What a thali for a these people is hardly 60 rupees. If you are giving it 30 rupees, they will take a priority to small things but works very highly. As far as FMCG supply is concerned, they do take care of having multiple units in India, and they do understand the costing that only 4 states are giving sugar, and while putting that institution how much cost will sugar will I buy and how much percentage we use as sugar. Say in biscuit they use between 15 to 22 percentage, in soft drinks between 20 to 25 percentage, according to what will be my costing. That is CFO work, and they works different way. There are not at all any frictions between the supplies over anywhere. But yes, one have to work how we can do and how we can make the money.
Perfect, Praful bhai, very well articulated, and I totally agree. Small gestures, right, have a huge impact, especially when actually there is a little bit of a chaos. And as you rightly said, like giving subsidized food or free food and certain services. And so this is where you find that in North America and Europe, right, there are such a great facilities for truckers and those who are on road. Unfortunately, India will have to think just not from the sugar industry perspective. But overall, we think for our truckers, we should have better facilities. They move for us huge amount of cargoes. And with that, Praful bhai, thanks a lot. It was
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you with
Thank
your
you, Deepak.
frank and open
Thank
view,
you.
and looking forward to have more engagement. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deepak bhai. Thank you very much.
So with that, we come to end of this session on sugar focused on Asia and Pacific. You know that this has been a pretty marathon event. This is the 16th session we are having. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn from the stalwarts, right? In all these sessions, except one, I have been the moderator and part of it. Because of some emergency, I had to skip one. That was yesterday's Pulses Europe part of it, which very tactfully was handled with great, I would say, insights by my colleague, CEO of HnyB, Neeraj. But for me, I think it has been a great learning experience. Close to 15 panel discussion sessions, talking to close to 78 odd different people, right? And that's huge. And I've learned a lot. I think you would have also have learned a lot. In fact, since Monday, this week, I've got habit of getting up morning, sitting in front of the screen, talking to expert, getting so much of knowledge and learning. I'm not very sure tomorrow onwards, like life mein kuch khali lagega, or I would say something would be missing, because every day being doing satsang, I call it, with the expert, as give me a lot of insight. I believe my audience would also have got a lot of value out of what we are doing. We just passed 83,000 viewers on different handles. That is what my team just shared with me. 2 more sessions to go. Now the question is that will we touch 100,000 viewers? Only time will tell. Looking forward to again meet you for our next panel discussion. I won't say panel discussion, our next session with expert from Europe, Middle East, and Africa, discussing sugar in their region. Join back at 9 a.m. GMT or 2:30 p.m. India time to learn from expert from Middle East, Europe, and Africa. We are having our last session today, late in the evening, India time, 6:30 p.m. and 9 a.m. New York time. And those who are logging in from United Kingdom, London, I will be there for a week. Looking forward to have some coffee or maybe a glass of whiskey with you in the evening, and looking forward to learn furthermore. The hunger for knowledge is what keeps on driving me and my team at HnyB and KYC going. And thanks a lot for our partners. Thanks a lot for our audience and for our exceptional speakers. Thank you.